Hello, everybody, and welcome to the White Hatter Unanswered Questions. Sometimes we do presentations with thousands of students, and sometimes we don't get enough time to answer all their questions.
With the new technology we're now using and then we've integrated into our platform, the kids are really digging the fact that they can now use their phones to connect with us directly. But one of the downsides to that is we are getting so many questions being asked, we can't keep up. So you came up with this great idea to host this show once a month where we answer questions that were posed to us by teens, both in middle schools as well as high schools, even some elementary schools that you present to, that we'll answer here on the show, which is kind of cool.
Yep, questions are upvoted in the Q&A, so we have taken some of the top upvoted questions we didn't get enough time to answer and address them here. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
First question, is being homophobic or transphobic illegal, or can it cause the person who did it get in trouble? That is a very complex question.
It is. And
Good question.
I'll kind of take a shot at it first. Like in Canada, we do have both federal legislation under the criminal code called hate crime, as well as provincially, we have provincial legislation that also says that if you're targeting somebody because of their race, religion, sexuality, their ability or disabilities, then you can be held accountable there. So again, it all comes down to context. We have the right to our own beliefs, right? But if you're now posing those beliefs in such a way or in a context, it could be considered criminal under the criminal code, or you could be held accountable under provincial legislation in your province as well.
Yeah. For those in the States, that will be dependent based off your state
for sure.
laws. Although, the whole idea of get in trouble, there's nothing stopping, say, a private organization from choosing not to hire you or work with you or get funding because of what you're saying or doing. So there's also the legal side of things, and there's also the reputation management side of things as well.
For the U.S. viewers, the U.S. Supreme Court just announced that they're taking on a brand new case now where they're looking over the fact that a specific business is refusing to do business with those who identify as LGBTQ from a religious belief standpoint. So the Supreme Court of the United States is now taking that one on, so it'll be interesting to see where the court rules on that one. But here in Canada, again, depending upon context, there could be legal consequences.
Definitely. Number 2, how can you get a Minecraft account back? So I'm assuming, let's say someone's account got hacked and a hacker stole your credentials. How do you then recover your account?
That's your wheelhouse, man.
Generally, it will be linked to either, right now, Microsoft has purchased Minecraft. So your Minecraft account should be attached to Microsoft. So you log into your Microsoft account in order to recover your password by clicking the Forget My Password button. You'll be sent a recovery email, change your password. You get your account back in most of the situations.
Yeah. Next question.
What should I do if my ex posted my nudes on the internet?
Well, I'll take that one on. I think in the first case, what you should always do is ask that individual, number one, to take it down, right? Number two, if they post here in Canada, again, I'm speaking Canada, I'll let you talk about the US in a second, but here in Canada, if anybody posts a nude outside of a relationship without the consent of the other person in that nude, then it is illegal right across our country in every province and every territory. So if reported to the police can get involved to deal with it. And if they posted the nude and the nude is of a person under the age of 18, that would be classified as child pornography in Canada, and therefore making application to the site in which it was posted to take it down, they'll take it down. And most of the sites are pretty good at that. But those are 3 really good after actions that you can take here in Canada. U.S., Brian?
U.S. pretty similar. It is state dependent, but the child pornography thing, that would apply. In regards to people over 18, that will be dependent on your state's particular laws. But I know a lot of states are implementing revenge porn laws that do cover that. If not, there's certainly civil litigation and lawsuits that can occur from that.
I will say that we have found that a lot of times teens try to handle it themselves, which is the first important step. But sometimes that just doesn't work, and you're going to have to reach out to an adult who can take other further action, be it legal or civil. Yeah.
How how do people find my Discord account?
That's in your wheelhouse.
So I'm assuming what you're referring to is when we talk about people who might do background checks on you. How can someone find your Discord account? Discord's neat in that you can't publicly search accounts super easily, but if you're in a lot of public servers, your name can be searched within those servers. So that could be a way, or people will link to their Discord account in their social media platforms, in maybe your About Me section in Instagram. Maybe you link to your Discord. So it's not as if someone can go into the Discord backend and get all that data, but you may be posting things that kind of link people to that account.
Right.
Earlier,
Great questions, eh?
Yeah.
Some good questions.
Earlier, you brought up how people should always be cautious about people as if they are to use your information. Wouldn't that make people overly paranoid after enough time of being afraid?
Yeah, you know what? There's a difference between paranoia and preparedness. And the whole issue is we don't want, we're not saying to teens don't get involved in the online world and share with the outside world, but be careful about the amount and type of information you're sharing, right? What's known as private identifiable information, such as your address, your social insurance number, stuff like that is more personal in nature that can then be harvested or copied and then be used for the purposes of identity theft, which is the number one crime now being committed online against teens right across our country and throughout the United States. So that's what it's all about. It's all about just being careful about the amount of personal information you're putting out there about people, about yourself, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you take legal action against people who release your private information without your consent?
I'll take that one on. The answer is it depends, right? And I know people...
The internet's all about depends.
A lot of people think the law is black and white. It's all shades of gray, right? But in most cases, if say you're being doxed online and they're getting private information that is publicly available online and then they're reposting it, could there be consequences? Likely not, but maybe there is, depending upon if what they've released now leads to a specific type of crime, right? Again, there's all kinds of nuances associated with that, but a lot of times, if people are just taking personal information that you made available publicly online in a public social media account and they're reposting it, nothing illegal about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they hack you and then post your private information, I mean,
Yeah.
the real crime there is the illegal hack.
Yeah.
And that's generally going to be what's going to be focused on.
Now, civilly, there could be some consequences for sure.
If they're posting lies.
That's right. Or even if they're under new case law here in Canada now, even if they're posting public private information and that public private information is now having some kind of a negative effect on the individual, there is some precedent now being set in Canada legally, civilly, where you could be held civilly accountable for that.
Yeah.
As well.
Now, if it's a private conversation between you and the person and that person posts that conversation, that's a different story.
Potentially, yes.
Because there's only one party consent for recording.
Right.
So it really does depend.
It does.
If you unfollow an account, can people find out that you used it to follow it? Oh yeah, there's unfollow bots. There are social media influencers and creators who either pay for or set up bots that identify who has unfollowed somebody. So yeah, because oftentimes your follows are public. People can look at who you follow, and with that public information, you can potentially track who then unfollows.
This is one of the reasons we say in our presentations to teens, who you follow and who you give shout outs to matter, right? They really do matter, right? So be careful about that.
Do you recommend using Face ID as a password app cell phone storage device or tool?
Yeah, like on my iPhone, I use my face as my password to get in, but I also have a backup of a PIN code as well, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the biometrics that are being used, like facial recognition and fingerprint recognition, are good, right?
It really depends on how that data is being handled. For example, your iPhone, the facial ID information is on a separate independent chip on the phone.
Yeah.
It's not shared to the cloud anywhere.
Right.
So you would have to set up your Face ID on all your devices.
Right.
So in that implementation, certainly. If it's Face ID that is then uploaded to the internet somewhere for storage, that's when things get a little bit worrisome.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your favorite game?
World of Tanks. I'm a boomer. World of Tanks. What's yours?
Of all time?
Well, what are the games that you play? You play like Cyberpunk and
I'm getting into Fortnite more recently. I do Magic the Gathering online. I mean, all time, I'm more of an RPG fan myself,
Okay.
role-playing games. So, I mean, I have a wide variety of games I enjoy. What would you suggest to encrypt my data if I am starting a business?
what a great question, right? Like these are coming from teens. Like these are great questions.
So, it kind of depends. It's a lot of depends. Give you some context. It depends on what kind of business you are running. A lot of laptops have built-in encryption methods. I mean, Apple has File Vault, for example, that will encrypt your hard drive. Definitely, yes, encrypting your business assets are really important. If you have an external drive, which a lot of small businesses have to store their data off their laptops, because you might have a lot of data. Maybe you're a YouTuber, so there's a lot of video files. Encrypting that has sensitive data is going to be important, and sometimes those systems you might buy have built-in encryption tools that you can enable. So it depends on what you have for your business, but oftentimes encryption is usually an option in many modern products.
You know what I like? I like the fact that this young person is actually thinking about privacy and security at the very start of starting a business rather than an afterthought before they get hit.
Not all
with
businesses
something.
do that.
No, they don't actually, right? So, I mean, this is a really good example where this teen is thinking ahead. Proper pre-planning prevents poor performance, right? So good on them, right? Great question.
How do you get out of blackmail?
I'll take that one on. It's a crime. You know, a blackmail, extortion, uttering threats, those are all crimes, both in our country and the United States. So if you're being blackmailed, so a good example, we see this a lot with nudes, right? Where all of a sudden a nude that you sent, the other person who receives it will say, hey, listen, if you don't send me more nudes, if you don't put money in my Bitcoin account, or if you don't send me Apple gift cards, I'm going to take this thing and I'll post it publicly, right? Well, the only way to deal with that, especially as if you're a teen, is you've now got to get an adult involved, which will often involve the police, right? So I'm just being very honest with you. Usually when it comes to blackmail, there's not a lot that teens can do, right? It has to be pushed up a notch in getting adults involved, and usually law enforcement.
Yeah.
How about if I read that? What if you used to post stupid stuff, but you've changed? Can that change your job offers and etc.? Yeah, we talk about that in our high school program called Leveraging Social Media for College, University, Sport, and Employment Opportunities. There's no doubt that your digital dossier, or what you've posted online in the past, can come back to haunt you in the future. However, there's a lot of things that youth can do to help mitigate that. And I think a lot of adults, especially your age, the millennials now, who are going into positions of hiring people, understand the fact that when the internet was first created, we all did really dumb stuff because we never really understood how it would affect us. So I think a lot of hiring people are kind of give a lot of youth today a little bit of leeway with respect to things that they're doing, as long as it's not over an extended period of time. But the other thing that we say to youth is, go into your digital dossier now and have a look to see what the internet knows about you. And if you can, delete what is there. And if you can't, bury it. And how do you bury it? And when I say bury it, I mean pushing it down into the internet cache, so it makes it harder to find. But the way you bury it is by starting to post really positive things. That's how you bury it.
Yep.
Right? And again, we know that most jobs and most college universities will only check the first, maybe the second page of Google, right? So if you're burying it, they're not likely going to go any deeper unless they're a company like ours that are being hired to do deep searches. So, yeah.
What's a good way to stay safe while pro gaming? Well, pro gaming can be certainly a career and a job opportunity. So anything you would do in your regular employment, it would be here. So if you are a pro gamer, for example, if you are a streamer, which a lot of pro gamers do, making sure that you have some, make yourself more anonymous in terms of people know your address, people know your phone number, because we've seen more cases of people who are getting swatted, where people will want to pull a prank on you, or more so a crime on you,
right.
And they will call police, who will then break into your house while you are streaming, just for the clips and the giggles.
I do think that it's also important that youth know that when it comes to becoming a pro gamer, the likelihood of you becoming a pro gamer is about at the same level as becoming a pro basketball player, a pro football player, a pro basketball player. It's a reality, but it's very much a rarity, right? Like I see a lot of youth today going, yeah, when I grow up, I'm going to be this pro gamer. And it's great to have goals, but they need to be realistic. And it's hard. It really is. It's a real challenge. So just something to think about.
And compared to a pro hockey player, there's not always a dedicated salary attached to it.
Correct.
Which creates sometimes more risk.
Yes.
But there's also potentially more rewards.
For sure.
Is what you post on Discord also being tracked? Yeah, I mean, Discord has their servers, and Discord does review servers, and they do have back-end access into servers. So, for example, if there is some sort of criminal activity happening, and then Discord receives a warrant to provide information, well, then they will provide information. So, yeah, Discord is being tracked, and anyone you're in that Discord server with can also potentially screen capture, copy, and paste what you're saying publicly. So, yeah. Discord's like any other social network. There's data, and you're being tracked.
I'm going to ask this next question. If I lost the login to my Bitcoin wallet with over $59,000 in it, is there a way to get it back? No. In fact, we're just writing a blog that is going to be coming up on NFTs, right? Non-fungible tokens and stuff, where we're talking about this very issue. That is why that key to your Bitcoin wallet is so important. That number one, you never share it with anybody, and number two, that you've got it recorded somewhere, probably off of your device, maybe in a hard written format somewhere that you hide, so that if this does happen, you still have it. Because once you've lost it, you've lost it.
Yeah, it can be very difficult. There have been cases people have been able to recover, but it is extremely rare, and oftentimes your crypto exchange is the one that's kind of footing the bill for that recovery. So that's the whole point of it, is to be decentralized, which means you are more responsible, where if your bank got hacked, well, there's legal systems and protections in place to help you
get your money back.
Bitcoin, you are solely responsible.
And right now in the crypto realm, there is so much fraud going on right now, right? It's like the wild west right now, that our recommendation to young people especially is really don't get involved in that unless you know what you're doing and you're only dealing with reputable companies. But you got to be very careful.
What is the risk of having online friends?
I actually think having online friends is a good thing. See, the term friends today is totally different than what it was pre-internet, right? What I consider to be a friend as a boomer is totally different than what today's generation and millennials like you consider to be a friend, right? But the reality is that when you're meeting somebody online for the first time, yeah, they can become your friend, but they may not necessarily be who they say they are. And in fact, they can become a frenemy, as we like to call it as well. So you just got to be careful that when you're meeting somebody for the first time, always believe that they're never who they say they are. It comes down, that's the belief that they have to build rapport and trust with me to get me to know who they are and stuff. But you just look during COVID, look at how youth used social media platforms to connect with people around the world. I could only hazard to guess what it would have been like when I was in high school if COVID would have hit when the internet did not exist, right? Like, I would have gone cabin crazy. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Can the school find out when I'm on a bad site, even when I'm at home, for example, learning from home?
Well, I think it depends. There's the answer, right?
Is it a school-owned device?
Yes. Is it a school-owned device? Then yes. Are you using the school's Wi-Fi or internet connection? Yes, right?
School VPN?
Yeah. So the answer to that question is it depends, but in a lot of cases, yes, they can. But if you're using your own device outside of school on your own network, no.
Yeah, we did see some very interesting privacy concerning situations during the rise of learning from home with COVID, with schools using software that students were required to install on their computers, which could then be interpreted as spyware.
Yeah.
So those have been challenged in courts and whatnot.
And I think they should be challenged, to be quite honest. I wasn't in agreement of that. I understand why schools were doing it, because they're saying, well, how do we know the kids are actually watching, right? Or how do we know they're not cheating and stuff, right?
But use a school-owned device.
Yeah,
solves the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But some schools don't have the money to pay for that, so they rely on spyware to do it on their own personal devices, which is a no-no. That's the same thing in business. Speaking of spyware, can government spy on me?
Where's my tinfoil hat? Yes.
Which government?
Can they legally do it? Maybe yes, maybe no. Do they do it anyways? Probably. Is it morally okay? Probably not. But the answer is yeah. And, in the United States, they got this thing called the Patriot Act, right? Which allows agencies with 3 letters like the FBI, the CIA, other things like that.
NSA.
Yeah, to have full access to anything that's posted online without a warrant, right? Like, we don't have that in Canada, but I'm also not ignorant enough not to believe that government agencies are also watching what it is that we are doing here on the internet, right? So That's just our answer, right?
If you download spyware, how would you get rid of it? Well, antivirus programs. The best strategy is to prevent it in the first place, making sure you're downloading things from proper places. Number 2, having proper paid-for subscription antivirus programs. So if you do happen to get something on your computer, it will detect it, it will remove it. So if you haven't followed those, the only way to remove the spyware is usually to then purchase a proper antivirus program to scan your device and remove it. But once it's on there, there could be anti-malware strategies the virus could be using. So having a antivirus program beforehand is the top recommended strategy, or sometimes you get a new device. But spyware, okay, maybe you don't have to do that. But if it's ransomware, where your device is locked, maybe doing a full wipe, which is the least desirable way to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask this next question and answer it. Can hackers see dash cam videos? And the reason I want to answer is because I got a dash cam in my car. Like, I purposely got one. The answer is probably not. Like, the dash cam that I use is air gap. Like, it doesn't connect to the internet. It records to a little card, and then I take it out and put it in my computer, download it in my computer, and then upload it. At that point in time, it potentially can be accessed by a hacker. However, there's some new technology coming out now on dash cams that allows the dash cam to immediately download remotely via Wi-Fi in your car or Bluetooth in your car to the cloud. So,
which is not a bad thing to have.
No, but hypothetically, anything that gets transmitted now has the ability to be intercepted if there's not proper privacy put in place. But in most cases, the answer to that question would be no.
Yeah. In 5 years from now, maybe. Ask us again.
Yeah, for sure.
How often should you change your passwords or update your devices? The common sort of saying is, change your passwords every 6 months. Honestly, every year is totally fine. How often should you update your device? Pretty much usually when there's a new update, depending on what you're doing. If you have a business that relies on a lot of systems on your device, upgrading might break some things. So wait for the patches and see what comes up. But usually for end consumers, when there's an update, usually it fixes bugs and problems that you probably want to upgrade to.
Yeah, those updates usually plug the holes that hackers go after, right? So, I mean, we met a teen who hadn't updated their phone for over a year. Well, that phone was now vulnerable. So, one of the things we say is that whenever it comes to update on these mobile devices, update it immediately. When it comes to updates to operating systems on your computer, I say once the update comes out, wait a couple of months to let all the bugs get worked out, and then think about maybe downloading it. That's kind of what I say, right?
Yeah, I usually, when there's an update, I will, I'll see an update, wait a day or two, and I'll see, because usually there'll be reports on what the bugs are, and I'll determine, are those bugs something I'm likely to get? Are those bugs something that I need to avoid, or can I live with them for a bit because again, we have to weigh security fixes over a few bugs. So that's what it comes down to for me. Do all VPNs actually protect us?
No.
It depends.
No.
It depends on the reliability. If you tune into our YouTube news shows, we talk about various news stories on how some VPN providers were just scams and they didn't protect you at all, or they were selling data because they were a free VPN, or even some paid for VPNs weren't set up properly enough that there were flaws in their system. So
the one that we use that we really like, and most in our industry like, is PIA, private internet access, right?
Yep. Any mainstream major VPN, the ones that actually spend money on ads that are the top 5 hits on Google, Nord and those type of ones as well. They have a lot of business money to make their systems good. So you have to invest in a good system.
going to ask this next question. Is your phone watching everything you do every moment? Not watching, but recording they are, right? It's amazing what these devices know about you when you're traveling with them. So they're not necessarily watching, but they're recording all kinds of metadata, including location data, which could be accessible by those in law enforcement by the way of warrant. I mean, I always joked around that we should invent a pair of pants and shorts that have got a Faraday shield in the pocket so that when you put it in the pocket, this phone is not transmitting or collecting any kind of personal information about what you're going and where you're doing, right? But yes, the answer is they're not watching, but they're recording a lot of what you're doing, where you're going, and all that stuff that is accessible, right?
How do you wipe your online portfolio? You start by deleting as much as you possibly can. Can you guarantee anything's deleted? No, of course not. There's physical backups and backups on backups, so there's no guarantee, but you can certainly try and hide things by deleting as much as possible.
And if you can't delete it, bury it. And how do you bury it? By posting all kinds of really cool stuff about yourself online, so you're pushing the bad stuff so down far in the internet cache that it makes it harder to find by employers, recruiters.
How much does it cost for a normal investigation, and does it cost anything to place something like a geofence?
It depends upon the agency in which you're working at or going to hire. But yeah, there's a cost associated with doing any kind of online investigations. Like we as a company, we're licensed online investigators. We have a license in the province to do that. And there's a fee attached to that. And the fee is not something that is cheap, to be quite honest, because it takes a lot of time and effort and equipment, which all costs money in order to conduct those types of investigations.
And equipment can be costly.
It can.
I play with 60-year-olds on Fortnite. Is that okay?
It depends.
It depends. An analogy I can relate to card games or Magic the Gathering, for example. There are tournaments where people of all ages go and play and enjoy the game. Yeah. Is that a bad thing? You're playing against a component who happens to be.
Or I'm a 57-year-old boomer, and I'm sure I'm competing against teens in World of Tanks, right? Like it depends, right? So just because somebody's 60 years old doesn't make them a bad person, right?
If they're doing things that make you concerned, be it 60 or 10 or whatever age, well then, yeah. Age doesn't.
To a degree, I do kind of blame parents and caregivers on this because they have a habit of saying to young people, oh, it's old creepers online, right? It's some old creepy guy, right? Well, you know what? I know a lot of young creepy people as well. So it's not the age, right?
Surprise. Anybody can be creepy.
Yeah. Are you calling me creepy?
Next question. Is sexting illegal?
It depends. Right? And it depends upon the country you're in, where you're located and stuff. I mean, that whole question really, it takes a much longer answer than what we can deliver.
We have an hour-long presentation that delves into that.
So I can tell you here in Canada, sometimes it isn't and sometimes it is. It's all depending upon context,
and
right?
In the
and
States,
the country.
It depends on which state you're in.
Right?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
We need an hour to delve into that. But that's the brief answer.
It depends.
It really does depend.
It does.
Is it safe to use Amazon?
It depends. We use Amazon all the time. Brandon more than me, right? And
hey, 2-day delivery.
Yeah. I mean, it depends upon how you're using it. If you got proper protocols put in place to protect your information that you're saying, all that kind of stuff. Brandon, comments on that?
Yeah, Amazon's just any other regular retailer. Can sometimes people post maybe and sell some scammy-like things on there? Potentially. But it's like any other online retail space.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally fine.
I'll ask the next one. What's your opinion on Zoom bombers? That's one of the reasons why we use our own platform, because we can't be bombed. But for people who are bombing other platforms, be it Zoom, Teams, or anyone else, it's illegal in Canada. You can actually be charged for that, right? So it's illegal. And because of that, a person who does it can be held criminally liable for their actions, and so they should. But that's one reason why we decided, or you decided, Brandon, to create our own platform where we can't be bombed, right?
Yeah. Isn't privacy a human right?
The answer is yes. However, if you're voluntarily typing stuff into your social media and making it publicly without reading the terms of service, where it's quite clear on these platforms, they say anything you post on here is going to be public, well, then you've just given up that human right, right? Like, you've got the right to privacy, don't get me wrong. But when you start posting stuff into social media platforms, even when they say that what you're posting is private, never ever believe that fact.
Yeah, privacy as a human right is currently being debated right now across the world, even in different countries. And, I think what we hear a lot from students is, a parent can't spy on me online because privacy is my human right.
No.
Where there legal guardianship, there's always exemptions and examples and different situations that apply.
I do think we have a right to privacy from these big vendors, right? When I look at, if I look at the difference between a right of a parent to know what their child is doing online, which they have the right to do as a parent, compared to these big vendors who are taking all of our personal information, even though you're signing and checking off that box that says that you've read the terms of service, which none of you ever do. Well, that's the difference, right? Yeah.
Does selling our information violate any human rights? That is going to be country by country dependent. Some countries can view it as a human right. Some countries do not. Again, that is being debated right now across the world. So it really just depends where you live. Oftentimes in North American countries, they can't do it unless you sign a legal agreement, which you do for every social network you sign into. So
I also find that a lot of people, especially younger people, but even adults, they like to throw out this phrase human rights without understanding what human rights actually is and the law surrounding human rights in each country, because each country is going to be a little different. A lot of people have a habit of quoting the UN Charter on Human Rights, which I think is important, but just because the UN has it doesn't mean that it is enforceable or actionable here in Canada or the United States or anywhere else in the world, right?
Yeah.
So that's really important to understand. But I hear a lot of times where I'll hear you say to me, my parents don't have the right to have a look and see what it is I'm doing because it's a violation of human rights. No, it's not. There is no law in Canada, no human rights law in Canada that says that
or the U.S.
that says a parent doesn't have the right. In fact, they are negligent. The parents could be held to be negligent if they're not understanding what it is that you're doing in some cases. So just some thoughts,
if
right?
a student does something that's criminal and they're not paying attention to that and they're being willfully blind to that, the parents could be legally responsible for what you do.
And the other fact remains is that if whatever you're posting online, consider it public, permanent, searchable, exploitable, copyable, shareable, and for sale. Period. End of story.
What do you do if someone sells nudes of you?
Illegal. Right? Without your consent is illegal. If you're under the age of 18, it's child pornography or child sexual abuse material. Illegal, illegal, illegal.
Yep. Contact local law enforcement.
Law enforcement. You need to amp it up a little bit, right?
Well, I'm sure they would love to help you make that
for
stop.
sure.
What do I do if I'm interested in becoming a legal hacker?
There's some great courses out there. They're called ethical hacking courses that you can take at community colleges, universities. There's a number of online programs that youth can take to learn how to code. And a part of learning how to code is to become what's called a pen tester. Maybe you can kind of explain what that means.
Yeah, penetration tester, where you test a computer network to see how vulnerable it is. Therefore, you can fix it before bad hackers get in and break the system. So usually becoming a legal hacker, there are university programs. You don't have to go to university. No. Oftentimes, hacking is based off of your certificates you've gained and your experience and what you can actually do. You don't need a full-fledged four-year degree. It can help, but if you take your certificate programs and you achieve them and you pass them, you can look for good employment in that area. Is it illegal to screenshot personal stuff people say to you and then show other people?
It depends, but in most cases, no. But if it's a screenshot of a nude and that person's under the age of 18 and then you show it to somebody, then you in Canada, you can be charged with the distribution of child pornography or accessing child pornography. But yeah, if I'm in a text messaging and you in which I think is private and encrypted, and then the other person screen captures it and then shares what it is that I've shared with them, is that illegal? No, it's not illegal.
At least here in North America, most places have what's known as a one-party consent, where only one party in a conversation needs to consent to recording the conversation and therefore making it public. There are some places around the world, I can't think of anything in particular, where all parties need consent.
Yeah, it has to be two-party consent. Yeah.
But here in North America, generally, it's one-party consent. So if you're in a group chat of 5 people, if only one person, even themselves, consent to posting the conversation, they can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, if it's illegal stuff they're posting, that's a whole other story. But generally speaking, not illegal.
I'll ask the next one. Is it illegal to blackmail?
Yep.
It's called extortion, sometimes uttering a threat. There's a variety of criminal code charges in Canada and the United States that somebody could face if you're being blackmailed online.
Setup tour? Question mark? Maybe. I need some time to do that, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool tech we have here. I know students love to see the behind the scenes.
They do.
Camera we have.
They do. Like when we show them the background, the back camera, and they can see all this kind of stuff. Maybe you can show it. I don't know if you're able to do that with this recording that we're doing. So
maybe depends how much time I have for editing.
Yeah, but I mean, they look at this and go, "Oh wow, like how much did that catch?" And they also see all the boxes that we have of our equipment, and they can see it on our set.
They ask what kind of CPU we have or GPU,
kind of stuff, right?
So there might be a setup tour sometime in the future here on YouTube.
Yeah,
check in for that.
You never know.
How far back do employers go when they are searching you?
Most employers will go back just a couple of years, depending upon the position. Now, again, it depends upon the position. We've done some work for the defense industry.
If it's national security,
they'll go back right to the very beginning. Yeah. But most employers and most college universities, my opinion, they're only going to check back, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and they're only looking for anything that is potentially publicly very significant.
Correct.
Even if it was 20 years ago, if there was something you did 20 years ago that was really bad, they may not want to touch you, even though it was a long time ago. But if for simple little things, they probably won't go back very far.
Yeah.
Are calls recorded?
It
depends.
If the person who's got the phone has got a recording function on there and they hit it as you're talking, then yes, it is. But again, in most cases, no.
Yeah, I think of it as any call can be recorded. Right. Doesn't mean that, if you call into a tech support line, they'll say, this call is being recorded for quality assurance. Right. Okay, obviously. But, anyone you call or talk to, they could potentially be recording.
I love this next question. Is it illegal to hack a Fortnite? Asking for a friend, obviously. I've never hacked. I never will. Just asking, just in case. Brandon?
I think a lot of people will get the mistake a glitch versus a hack. Yeah. So a glitch is, for example...
But I'm just asking for a friend, not for me.
Generally, if you are glitching a game in that you're not breaking the code in Fortnite servers, a glitch is not inherently a hack. It's not illegal per se. You may be violating their game policy and you might get kicked from their game. If you are hacking, whereby you are actually breaking into their servers and changing the code, then that's generally going to be considered illegal activity. So glitching versus hacking, there are differences. Yeah. So
next question. Is the app notes on an Apple secure? Well, the easy answer is no. Right? You can actually say it depends, but in most cases I say no. In fact, I just read an article just recently where somebody who had a password protected notes app on their Apple device, it was breached. So that's one of the reasons why we actually say in our presentation, we don't want you to keep your username and passwords on your notes. We want you to get a password locker like LastPass and some of the others that are out there. So the next question is, Tor browser secure? Nothing is ever 100% secure, but is it more secure than the light web? The answer is yes. However, Brandon, we've talked about this in our show, right? Where the Tor network, law enforcement has been able to identify people via the Tor network, right?
It takes a lot of time and effort, and there have been reports and leaks and government documents that certain governments have been buying up Tor exit nodes, and if you control more nodes, you can see more of the network. So
I think the FBI, they set up a huge sting where they did that and they went public with it, and people went, ooh!
Yeah, and other governments around the world, some who are being problematic and such. Yeah.
The other thing about the Tor browser, that's what you get. It's called the Onion Router, TOR, the Onion Router. I mean, it takes you down into what's called the deep web. Part of that is the dark web. My bigger concern of young people who are using Tor and going to the deep dark web is they're not taking other safety protocols to ensure that they're protecting their devices, right? Because like it or not, when you go down there, depending upon what you're clicking on, you could be downloading some significant malware into your system.
Tor won't help you if you get a virus.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Is it safe if my account is on private? It's safer.
Safer.
Nothing's ever 100% safe,
safer.
but definitely you are safer.
So one of the things I say is I think we've mislabeled those privacy buttons. We like to say they're visible. They decrease your visibility of being seen, but never believe that just because you got your privacy settings set, that what you're posting is going to stay private.
Yep.
So it depends.
Is it safe? Oh, we just answered that one. How illegal is doxing and swatting?
It can be illegal. In fact, there was a teen in Vancouver who was arrested, charged, and convicted for both doxing and swatting people across North America, Canada, and the U.S. from gaming platforms.
Yeah, the doxing depends on, are they just resharing already public information?
Or how are they sharing it? Yeah.
Or have they hacked you and then or what are they saying are they threatening you with the doxing? That's oftentimes where doxing now becomes illegal. Swatting, most certainly. Doxing, it does depend on the information and the context. Mm-hmm. You talked a lot about social media, but how trackable are search engines?
Well, to me, it's about how the search engines are tracking you and monetizing what you are doing on their search engine, right? Like Google is infamous for this. So this is why we say rather than using Google search, think about using DuckDuckGo, right? Because they're not collecting the clicks and where you're going and selling it to people. So again, to me, it's more about the search engine, what they're collecting about you, and then monetizing and selling to people and monetizing it to their benefit.
Yep. Are you using OBS when we broadcast? And yes, we do. I mean, OBS is probably the best broadcasting program that anyone can just get their hands on to use. And
just for people who don't know, what's OBS?
Open Broadcast Studio, which allows you to take videos like what we do here and then share it live on YouTube, Twitch, and anywhere else.
And Brandon's gotten really good at it. Really good at it.
OBS has been my life in many jobs.
I mean, you and your partner are now using OBS to do really cool things, right?
Yep.
Like, some really cool things.
I do OBS for the White Hatter, and I do OBS in other places in my life. OBS is my entire world. Do you recommend against using one's real name online?
For those from grade 10 and under, yes. I would say stay away from using your full name. If you want to use your first name, that's okay. Stay away from using your full name. I think once you reach upper grade 10 into 11 and 12, it's important that you start using your real name, because in those grades, you want to move from a something to hide a mindset to a something to show mindset, specifically when it comes to college, universities, and employers, right? Because you want to be findable so that you're being able to show college, universities, employers all the cool things you're doing. So that's kind of our stance is grade 10, under grade 10, nah, over grade 10, then yes. So
is the Opera GX web browser safe?
That's your wheelhouse, brother.
Yeah, nothing's wrong with it. I use Opera GX depending on what I'm doing. So
what is Opera GX? Is it, just so people know who may not know, right?
It's a web browser like Chrome and Firefox and Safari.
Right.
Opera has definitely branded itself as being the lightest weight, which is best for, say, web browser gaming.
And speed too, right?
And speed, which is best for gaming performance.
Yeah.
So that's how they brand themselves. And from what reports I've seen, it's totally fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with using it. How many cameras do you have?
6. Oh, actually 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.
6. But then we have 3 HDMI other inputs. So my laptop, the other laptop, and the iPad.
And then sometimes, I don't know how you do it, you're able to take the camera from our iPhones.
Oh, yeah. If you count being able to connect via the iPhone cam. So, I mean, how many HDMI inputs do we have? So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 HDMI inputs, and then 1 IP camera.
Yeah, but we're using 6 cameras right now, but we also have the ability to use our mobile device cameras too if we need to. And there's been a couple of shows where you've done that, right?
Yeah, a couple custom sessions or conferences. Yeah. Is finding someone's IP address without permission illegal?
Nope. Next question.
No. Every website you go to is looking at your IP address. Your IP address is like your home address. It's out there.
I'll answer the next one. Does the Canadian government share information about its citizens with other Five Eye nations? Yeah, the Five Eye nations are Canada, Australia, the United States, Canada, and Great Britain. And it's basically the spy agencies. And the answer is yes, they share information amongst one another, right?
It's so generally in many countries, they don't have permission under law to spy on their own government, but there's nothing stopping, say, another government from spying on you.
Correct.
And therefore, and then they share that information with each other.
They act like proxies to one another.
Yeah.
Right?
So technically, they're not breaking the law as written, but because they're getting the information about citizens from another country, that's how the Five Eyes is able to function.
Right.
So, good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a very good question.
Where's my tinfoil hat? I gotta find that tinfoil hat.
We gotta bring back the tinfoil
for
hats.
sure.
Do games collect personal information? General. If you're just using like a simple web browser game, probably nothing beyond your IP address and maybe cooking information, which I guess is technically personal information. So I guess, yeah, depending how much, depends on the game. Why do people use online dating apps?
Why not?
I mean, it just increases the process of finding a potential, of the billions of people on planet, do you literally have enough time to, physically talk to and meet every single person? No.
That's how I met my wife and your mother. Easy, boo. Easy. But why not? I mean, dating apps, you just got to be careful. It's like any other social media platform. It's not the app or the platform, it's how people use the platform. But, it's a way to interact with people. And what we're finding now is that people who are engaging with one another, including in online gaming, are ending up getting engaged, getting married. You're meeting somebody who have the same interests as you. And as a result of that, a relationship builds to the point where now they get engaged and getting married, right?
There's a new documentary on Netflix. I haven't seen it yet, but called the Tinder Swindle.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's good.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's good.
But I saw it on my
good.
recommended.
It's really good.
Obviously recommended to me.
It's good. Yeah, it's good.
Is it okay to have no social media presence, or is that also considered bad by people who search it up?
Yeah.
If you have no social media.
I'll recommend that. I'll talk to that one because we do speak to that as well in our presentations. The answer is it depends. There's no doubt that we know that college, universities, employers are now looking at your social media and using it as a filtering mechanism, right? So if all of a sudden I've got one position left in my faculty at a college or university, and I got two candidates. I got one that's got a really good social media presence that looks really cool, and then we have one who has no social media presence. Human nature is such that they'll usually pick with the known individual. That's what human nature is, right? And also, we have heard from businesses that if somebody doesn't have a social media presence, it causes them to go, that's weird, or number two, what are they trying to hide from us, right? So we're not saying that everybody needs to get online to create this digital dossier of themselves. But what I am saying is that if you have a positive digital dossier of yourself, it will work for you rather than against you.
Yep. Can you hack Apple devices? Apple said they are the most secure device.
Anything can be hacked.
Just because something might be the most secure does not mean it is 100% secure. It might be better than its competition. Doesn't mean it's perfect.
Or another really good example, if you and I are dating,
You're my father.
I know, but let's just pretend, right? So, and I got access to your phone. There's nothing to stop me from downloading malware onto your phone without you knowing. So technically, I've hacked it, right? So,
true.
I mean,
is it true that my parents can see my search history through the internet bill? It's not like when you get an internet bill, it shows you all the websites you've been to. That'd be a really big piece of paper.
Yeah, why is money going into my OnlyFans site and then into an online banking account?
More so, a lot of your internet service providers will have a record somewhere in their system of what devices in your network go to what websites. It won't be in the bill per se, but it very well might be in the back end.
Yeah, and parents won't have access to it, but law enforcement will.
Yeah, or a parent submits a information request.
Yeah, potentially.
Which will probably cost them $20-$50 to do. Yeah. So it depends on the company that you get your internet from.
Sorry, I'll read it.
No. I almost said the name, and I don't want people who are watching and they have that thing beside their desk.
Okay.
Does Alexa record or send information?
That's funny.
Whenever you give it a
Siri.
command, whenever you give it a command, and it's always listening for that command, and once the command is enabled, then it starts the recording process, which then sends that to to Amazon to then process and follow through with your command. So, It does when you give it a command.
Right. Do I have a social credit score in Canada like I'm in China?
Nope.
No.
No.
Do I have a social credit score in Canada? Like
No,
in
see,
China?
Chinese citizens, they have a social credit factor of how credible they are as a person.
No.
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 I mean, there is an unspoken reputation that everyone has. You know, if you are inherently saying you're doing horrible, evil, ugly things online, people are going to see you as less than
Desirable.
But there is no set government number that
Right.
tracks and identifies
Some
you.
great questions, man. Are we getting to the end yet? Woo.
Is YouTube safe? Can people see what you are looking at on YouTube? We're on YouTube. That's what we're doing right now. YouTube's completely safe. Obviously, if you are posting personal things, safer, right?
Yeah, never say it's completely safe because nothing.
It is safer.
Right.
YouTube is safer.
But it's like any other. We say this all the time. It's not the platform. It's how people use the platform that make it safe or not.
Can people see what you are looking at? Well, YouTube has a record of your history. Now, if you're on a Wi-Fi network that can look at maybe the videos you're looking at through the address potentially, if you have a browser plugin that is helping you block ads, maybe that browser plugin's looking at your history. So there's a lot of potential in the pipeline for you to watch something on YouTube.
And again, YouTube is collecting that history, and because of that, it is accessible by law enforcement by way of warrant as well.
That as well. Right, so. Or if you're commenting on videos, then there's a very clear indicator that you went to this particular video site, video URL.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's our unanswered questions for February.
Wow.
Thank you all so much for the questions.
I love this session. I really do, because it is so cool to see the questions that youth, middle school, elementary, and high school students will ask us, right? Which tells me they're really paying attention to what we're speaking to in our presentations, right? Love these presentations. Love this YouTube event.
Yes. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next time. Stay safe.
Bye now.
Bye.